Now it's time to hear the stories of Utes in their own words. This is Utes Insider presented by Pepsi. Here's your host, Mike Lageschulte.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. It's brought to you today by University of Utah Health. With 16 convenient neighborhood health centers, we have a game plan for your family's health. Visit uvuhealth.org today. I'm Mike Lageschulte. Thanks for joining us. We've had a fun time catching up with our coaches in recent weeks and just asking them about some of the challenges they face with dealing with college athletes during this time of not a normal spring, summer, or fall and getting sports back going again. We talked to Tom Fard and also Beth Lanier a few weeks ago. And today, I want to bring on another veteran head coach on the Ute coaching staff. Rich Manning's been here since 2002 coaching women's soccer. During that time, he's won 188 games. He's taken his team to the postseason 8 times. They made it back in 2019. In fact, they were one of 9 Pac-12 teams to make the postseason that year. But as I said, it's been just a challenging time for coaches to deal with everything physically, mentally. You're talking about 19, 20, 22-year-olds dealing with life and all the pressures and anxieties, and it's just been different. So I wanted to talk to Rich about not only this year's team and how he built the program, but also how he's dealt with just the challenges and also some topics that he brought up on social media this summer. You know, Rich grew up playing soccer in Southern California, where he played with guys from all kinds of different backgrounds, different countries, different economic backgrounds, and really summarized a great story of his experience playing soccer that I think really carries over to life. So I want to talk to Rich about that. Should be a fun conversation. Rich Manning, head coach of Utah Women's Soccer, when we come back in just a moment.
To hear more episodes of this show and other Utah Athletics podcasts, search for them on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. Now back to more of Utes Insider presented by Pepsi.
Well, welcome back to the show. We're joined now by a man who's starting his 19th season at the University of Utah, a guy who really took the soccer program to new levels of excellence, and he's been here a long time, doing a great job, still doing a great job. Rich Manning, head coach of the Utah women's soccer team. Rich, thanks for hopping on.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Always enjoy talking with you.
Same here. We'll catch up on the season as we get ready for some home games here at some point, but I want to talk to you about this year and about your team and really how you built this program. First of all, Rich, it's been kind of a strange year with no usual summer, no fall. COVID-19 has wreaked havoc on so many things. How's your team survive sort of this strange time of no fall and now playing your fall season in essence in the springtime?
Well, I think they've done a really good job of just kind of keeping focused on what's important and be willing to make some sacrifices and then kind of supporting each other through kind of the challenges of that. And, full credit to the players themselves. They've been fantastic. And then I think the university athletic department and my staff here, our staff with the soccer team, have done a really good job as well of just being there to support, giving good information and guidelines and just helping people out. I couldn't be prouder of the kids. They're doing a great job. And now that we're starting to play some games for this spring, they feel a lot of pressure to, keep each other healthy and safe and do the right thing. And that can cause a lot of stress and challenges, and they're just managing it very, very well.
You lead me to a great point, and my next question is just how your team is dealing with the stress. That's been the one thing I think everyone, not that they've forgotten about or overlooked, but it's been such a huge thing that it's always there, the pressure to perform and to do well, but just the stress of dealing with this situation and the idea that, hey, you need to be smart and stay healthy and watch who you're around and always be cognizant of the fact that, you could expose yourself and expose your teammates to COVID-19. In terms of that stress, how's your team dealt with that? And plus just the idea that it hasn't been normal. The normal social interactions aren't there. The normal class schedule has not been there. How's your team just from a mental standpoint dealing with all this?
Well, I think they're doing a really good job of supporting each other, roommates or housemates, helping each other out with little things to get around town or, just let's find ways to keep each other, to enjoy each other's company and do what we can do safely. I know the department, the wellness staff at the department has been great too. Fantastic resource that they've leaned on at times for a chat. For, hey, let's set up a team activity over Zoom or something we can do right after practice. Those little things have come to mean a lot. But there's no question, more than ever before, it's really exposed kind of the challenges and stress and how important, I guess, mental health is probably the best umbrella for it. How important that is, not only to perform well, but just to help these guys in a very vulnerable part of their lives when they're just starting to be independent and figure things out. And it's been hard, but like I said, I'm really proud of them.
As a head coach, I know you try to be in touch with everyone the best you can be, and your assistants are doing the same thing. And, you have a larger team than some, but as a head coach, Rich, have you found yourself spending more time just talking to your kids and your athletes and just making sure, like you said, that everyone's doing okay with all this?
No question. I am a texter. I know how to do DMs on our Instagram.
Yeah.
Any way we can communicate, the better. And what I've done now is I shared pictures of food. That's a big one for us. When my wife and I make a new recipe, we've tried a lot of new recipes during this pandemic time. And I've got about a handful of players on the team that also really like to cook. So it's pretty much nightly there's pictures of food going around. Some successes and some failures, but it's been really fun to get to know the players kind of on that end too, something different away from the field and something that we can kind of share.
Do you feel this has brought your team closer together? And you talked about roommates looking after each other and teammates caring for each other. And that happens anyway with all good teams, but it just seems like everyone's been so cognizant about being careful who you're around, and you really get close to your family and your close friends. Do you find that your team has maybe gotten closer than they have been in the past because of this situation?
I think in many respects, yes, but I also think we don't necessarily feel it right now because we can't really spend the physical time together.
Right.
And I think if we get through the next few months and maybe we're allowed to a little bit more, we'll realize how connected we've become. But I think it's still really hard at the moment.
Well, let's talk about your team, Rich. A very young team that has 14 letter winners gone from last year, a team that made NCAAs back in the fall of 2019. You've had a chance to get a couple weekends in now. How do you feel about your team at this point?
Well, I'm really proud of them. In addition to, the COVID issues, we've dealt with a ton of injuries, and we've played a couple games now with about 14 field players. Now, keep in mind, we have 26 field players on our team, besides the goalies. When I say field players, that's what I mean.
Yep.
So we're down about 12 players through injury, and we started the first 3 non-conference games we normally play with 4 defenders. On the field, we had 1 person that had ever played defense.
Wow.
In their life. So I tell my friend Amy Hogue with softball, it'd be like trying to start the season with 1 infielder and trying to figure it out while you're playing against really good teams.
Yeah.
So it's been a huge challenge. We've had some players really step up and just get out of their comfort zone and just kind of say, hey, I'll do this for the team. I'll play in the back and help out. And like you said, we have a lot of new players kind of getting their feet wet as far as minutes in the first time, for the first time. So it's kind of been a big adventure so far. And we're hoping to get a few more players back in the next couple of weeks that I think will allow us to kind of move back to our normal positions. But after having a lot of the same players for the last 4 years, and then a lot of them graduated in 2019, it's definitely been a new frontier for us. I think it's going to continue to be a growing process. I'm really excited about the talent and the personality and the commitment on the team. But it's been hard. We went to go play our first non-conference game against BYU, who has a really strong team. And, with all the people being out and all the newness, I knew it was going to be a really big challenge. And kids kind of dove in and did their best. And, we haven't won all of our games, but they're working at it, and we're learning a lot about each other. So I'm excited to kind of continue this process through the spring, and then hopefully it really prepares us for a fantastic fall season.
This is so hard this spring, Rich, because, it's not a throwaway season, but yet everyone's eligibility has been frozen, and it's almost kind of a bonus, but at the same time, it still counts. You're playing games, they're keeping score. There's a scoreboard, and at the end of the day, when you're done with your season, it's going to say the fall of 2020 was played in the spring of 2021, and here was your record. So, with your team, how much do you stress about results, or how much do you make it about just the process and growing during this spring?
Well, it's definitely a balance, because they want to win, and you can't take that from them by just saying, hey, this is only a process right now. So, hey, we're going to play to win, and here's the plan for this coming game. But at the same time, it has to be, guys, we're not going to be perfect, So that's kind of where we're at. And we just made a commitment to each other, between the staff and the players, that, we're going to go through this together and keep a good line of communication open. And we're going to learn. And hopefully we win along the way. That's the goal. And they've been really good about it so far.
In terms of your top players at this point and players who will maybe come back who can really stand out, give us some names of people to keep an eye on as we watch your team play this spring, Rich.
Well, I think we've got some really good we have a lot of good midfielders. We're trying to find ways to get more of them on the field together. Courtney Talbot, one of our really strong returning players who had a great freshman year in 2019. I think that up front, Hannah Olson, we have a freshman that a lot of Ute fans will know the name, Taliana Kafusi, and her father, Jason, played football here in the early 2000s when I first got here.
I remember Jason, yes.
And she is kind of a beast like her dad. Like, she's big, strong, and fast, and she has really good technical ability. And we're real excited about her present and future. She's got a lot of game and a lot of competitive spirit. I think that Eden Jacobson, who had 3 great years for us. She's probably like 35 years old right now, if I remember. She went on a mission and missed the 2018 and 19 seasons, and came back and was ready to go this fall. And obviously we got delayed. So she'll play this spring and next fall. She's been out with a knee injury over the last few weeks, but she's almost ready to come back. She's a really fun player to watch. And we have some really great freshmen as well. So looking forward to putting it all together.
In terms of the number of games, it's fewer than you would normally have in the fall by a little bit, and you guys will be wrapping up around mid-April. In terms of your health, do you have time to get some people back, or are you kind of taking the approach, hey, if you can, great, but we really want to make sure we're 100% come the fall of 21? What's been your approach in terms of your health and pushing people along this spring?
Well, we'll just take it as it comes. I mean, the beautiful thing about this spring is that we won't burn anybody's year. They're all going to get a red shirt. So normally by putting a person in one game, you risk, you burn their year. So if somebody's ready just for the last 3 games, we'll work them into the game. So we're not going to push it. The most important thing is to be healthy and play to your full capacity with health. But we'll go as, I guess, week to week. It's probably the best way to put it. It's been really weird. I mean, it mainly started in November. We stopped fall practice November 6th. And most of it was after that point, where it was kind of like 3 or 4 people calling over Christmas. Coach, I got hurt playing in my front yard or skiing or something, and it just kind of snowballed into our first 3 or 4 weeks of practice in January. So a lot of these are not minor injuries, and we're just going to work through it.
Yeah.
We're thankful we had enough players to play these 3 games the last 3 weeks. And like I said, we'll get a few people back, and some people are going to get some really valuable experience. And most importantly, these athletes all want to play. They haven't been able to play in over a year, and they're excited to play. And we need to remember that too.
It's been interesting. I've spent some time with gymnastics here this year, Rich, and talked to Tom Farden, and it just hasn't been normal. And you look at these high-level athletes who have been competing and training their whole lives, and they were told last spring, hey, we got to shut things down, and you're going home, and they're trying to do things on their own at area fields, area gyms, wherever they can get workouts in, but it just hasn't been the same. And I've watched gymnastics and other teams perform, and they're trying, that they want to compete, but they're just not where they normally are at this point of their season. And I'm guessing from what you've said, soccer's kind of in that same boat where, it just hasn't been the same for them. Therefore, their bodies aren't the same. And it sounds like you've had more injuries than probably you normally would just because of the lack of conditioning and consistency. Is that right?
We're definitely, we kind of look back towards, especially January. We practiced all fall without contact. And so we started contact in January, and we're kind of replaying in our head, like, did we go too fast? Did we skip any steps? What did we do? But at some level, some of it was just bad luck. A lot of it, like people got hurt off the field, and stuff like that. But we always want to do the right thing. And I do think there's something to just not being in a competitive rhythm for a long time.
Right.
With contact, with the speed of the game. I've watched several of our Pac-12 opponents in the first few weeks just on video here. And I can tell, like, the teams in general don't look as sharp. Mm-hmm. And that's to be expected. And I think we just got to work through it. We've all got our complaints about, injuries and not being sharp and this player missing and that and the other. And at the same time, it has to be, hey, these kids are really enjoying the game. We got to let them play, and then that'll help them get back to it.
Yeah, it has been fun to watch everyone get back out there, as you said, and be who they are. And I think the normalcy has helped everyone mentally and physically as we work through this COVID-19 pandemic. Visiting with Utah head soccer coach Rich Manning, who is now in his 19th season, although was delayed, his 19th year as a head coach of Utah soccer. Rich, I want to talk to you about your early days here. You came in to a program back in the early 2000s that had some talent, but had not been able to make NCAAs, and you came in right away and took what was here, added some pieces, and you won a lot fairly quick. Let's talk about your growth process with this program. Let's start with why you came to Utah. You were an assistant coach at Santa Clara and had a chance to be a head coach. You came here and took over, and as I said, you started winning right away. But what was it about the Utah job that sort of grabbed you and made you think, what, that's a place I want to go?
Well, when I was at Santa Clara, I think 3 out of the 4 years I was there as a coach, we played BYU in the NCAA tournament in 3 of those 4 seasons. And also we played Notre Dame, I think, every year. And they had a very good player from Utah, Ashley Dreyer, who now works in our athletic department, ironically, here at Utah.
Yes.
But she was at Notre Dame, and really good player, and all the good players from Utah, at BYU and Utah. And then a few other random teams had a player from Utah, and I'd be like, man, there's some really good players from Utah. This could be really fun to look into. And when the job became available, and just coming out here and visiting, it became very apparent that this would be a really great place for a soccer program. Now, I'm from California. I had lived in California my entire life, almost 40 years before I came here. And the day I came out for my interview was a little bit before the Olympics. It was in January of 2002. And I think it was like 7 degrees. And I went to the airport, flew in, landed at the airport here, went to the rental car, and the guy was like, you can't get in the car yet. The doors are frozen shut. And I had thoughts, being from California, like, what am I getting into? But as they always say, and I always tell our recruits that, once you get here and see this place, you're like, oh, this is way more than I expected. This place is fantastic.
Yeah.
And, I just loved it from the first day. Was lucky enough to get the job. They told me, hey, the Olympics are closing down campus for a month and a half. So just go back to California and just work from your phone. Came back in March and, ready to rock and roll from the beginning.
Well, it's worked out pretty well for you. You're Rich. You might not remember, I met you during the interview process. I wasn't with you as long as some other people on the staff, but Amy Hackett, who was our senior women's administrator then, was overseeing soccer and had myself and some others talk to the candidates. And after you left, the group of us who were talking to people said, he almost interviewed us more than we interviewed him. And I remember you being very careful about finding out some background on this department and the program. And it wasn't like you were just an assistant coach who wanted to become a head coach and take any job. You were being very careful about what you did And that kind of stayed with me. For you, obviously you saw what you wanted to in this program in Salt Lake and the players, but just talk about your philosophy. You weren't, to me, just going to take any job at that point to be a head coach, but you took the Utah job, and you must have felt good about it.
I did feel great. Well, I was in a really great place at Santa Clara. It was my alma mater. I had played soccer there, coached there. And, with the women's program coaching, when I was there, we were on top of the world. We went to the Final Four 3 out of 4 years, won the national championship in 2001, had maybe 9 or 10 players that were on the national team or soon to be on the national team. So I just didn't want to leave to go anywhere. I wanted to make sure it was a place that I would enjoy working at and also had a chance to be successful, which, this kind of checked all those boxes for me. And then in spite of how annoying you were on the interview process, I told Amy, I said, this guy Mike's pretty annoying, but I still would be interested in spite of that.
So I didn't completely blow it for us, is what you're saying. I tried, but I didn't quite succeed.
You're trying to sabotage it, but it didn't work.
No, it was crazy. That was my impression, and some other people said the same thing, but I was actually impressed by that. I'm like, this guy, as you said, you had a good situation at Santa Clara, and you weren't going to take just any job to become a head coach. You were very careful about what you were looking at, and that really impressed us. You talked about your time at Santa Clara, Rich, working with the likes of Mandy Clemens and Allie Wagner. You worked with several players who made the U.S. national team. In fact, 9 of them during your time at Santa Clara played for the U.S. national team. Those high-level players, I think as coaches, from what I've heard from people over the years, you almost learn as much from them as a coach as they do from you as a player. And with those high-level players, what are some things you picked up on in terms of how you develop them? How do you motivate them? How do you get to them? What are some things you learn from working with players of that level and that skill set?
Well, I think 2 important things are, one, they want to be coached too. And, to just kind of leave them alone and, hey, you're doing awesome. They need more than that. And so you have to get to know each player as much as you can to know kind of what learning styles they have and things like that. And even the top ones is to make sure you spend time with them. Even if they're playing awesome, they need feedback and they want to have that kind of coach-player relationship. I think the other thing is kind of just whether it be with individually or as a team, you have to know the difference between, hey, you've hit a bump on the road or you've made a wrong turn and now you're off the path you want to be on.
Yeah.
Because things, even with teams that are undefeated or doing great or players that are just playing at such a high level, like they'll hit a speed bump, something will happen, a bad game, bad performance, something off the field, an injury. And you have to be able to tell them, like, hey, just keep on the path. And being around the game long enough to know the difference between, hey, you're barking up the wrong tree right now. You need to change this. Or, you know what? I think you're doing great. Just keep at it. I think those 2 things really kind of stick out.
Well, we're talking about your career at Santa Clara from 98 till 2001 as an assistant coach with the women's program. You played for the men's team from 1982 until 86 for former U.S. national team coaches Steve Sampson and Ralph Perez. And you and I talked before, those guys were a huge influence on you and developed you as a player, but also helped you become the coach you are now. Just talk about Steve and Ralph and the things you took from those 2 during your time with them.
Really good people. Ralph was probably only 5 years older than me when he coached at the university. But such a good people person, like just really cared about you. That really sticks with me even today. And really, some really technical details about the game that are important, like just little things, little technical things, little 2-on-1 situations, transition situations, something in front of the goal, something about defending that he could share. And so I try to do that as well. Steve was really all about expectation. Like, hey, we need to be a great team and we're going to be a great team. And here's how we're going to do it. Really kind of raise the bar for you on your own expectations for yourself and your team.
Talking Utah head soccer coach Rich Manning on Utes Insider, presented by Pepsi. Well, Rich, let's talk about kind of the second growth process with this program. You came here in 2002, had success. You won the Mountain West Conference numerous times, went to NCAAs, and then, like everyone else, you changed jobs in essence when Utah joined the Pac-12 Conference. And for a lot of the programs, it was sort of a relaunch and a rebirth where you had to all of a sudden change who you were in terms of personnel and the teams you're recruiting against and playing against. Let's talk about that part of your career. So Utah joins the Pac-12 in 2011, and all of a sudden you're playing Stanford and UCLA and Cal and up and down the list of teams, on a regular basis. How did you sort of change the way you ran your program and developed your kids and recruited maybe a different level of kids in the program at that time?
Well, let's see. It's been an evolution for sure. And, we had played several of those teams before we entered the conference. But one thing you probably hear this from a lot of the coaches here at Utah, it's different between playing those teams, maybe a handful of them in the non-conference portion as a Mountain West team, and then having to play them week after week after week.
Right.
Because there's no let up, and the mindset for that, the physical preparation for that, has been the biggest challenge for sure. The Pac-12 Women's Soccer Conference is the best conference in the country. And the 4 California schools, I call them the four-headed monster, are probably the 4 most talented teams every year in our league, if not the country. In the last season we played in 2019, 9 of the teams of the 12 made the NCAAs. And 3 of them made the Final Four, and USC lost in the quarterfinal, I think in overtime, and they had some injuries, or else it would have been all 4 teams. And the level that the teams are playing at, especially those California schools, you have to have the right mindset, and you have to recruit players with the right mindset to want to go. I guess you throw the stone and knock Goliath down, and having people that just like to play soccer or just enjoy, hey, I want to go to college and play. You have to have people that want to go slay the dragons and knock down Goliaths, because that's who we're facing each week. And so that's been the process, not only for the players, but for me. I take losses very personally, and feeling like you got to get over it and get to the next week, or it will snowball, in this league.
Yeah.
And those are some of the things that have really stood out to me. It is really more the mental and physical piece, as much as anything else.
You've recruited a lot of Utah kids over the years, but also a lot of California kids and kids really from what is now the Pac-12 conference footprint. How do you sell them on coming to Utah? I mean, they can go to UCLA or Stanford. You mentioned the 4 California schools and stay close to home and maybe just be part of the team. They could come to Utah, maybe play a little bit of a bigger role sooner in their career. So as you talk to kids and you're trying to pry them away from California and going to one of those traditional powers to come help you build something at Utah, what's been your speech to them? What's been your sales pitch on why they should come to Utah?
Well, I think at the end of it is just like, hey, take a look. We need you to get out here and take a look. I want you to have the same feeling that I had back in 2002 when I interviewed and got out here for the first time.
Yeah. And
that is, this is not what you've heard of it. When you live in California, anything outside of California is all the same. So it could be Salt Lake City, it could be New York, it could be Russia, it could be Mars. It's all the same. It's just somewhere out there. So until you actually come here and see it, you realize, oh, it's not that far away. And look at this. It has things that I love back from home, and also these mountains, which we don't have this close. So our number one thing is always just try and get people here. Look at pictures, look at the video, and let's get you here and see it. And then the friendliness of the people. It's a sports friendly campus and town. The excellence of the sports. If you love sports, who wouldn't want to be on this campus and go to a football game and you're watching all these future NFL players and gymnastics meets and softball and baseball games in the spring, and go up to the mountain and watch these incredible skiers. from all these great schools. That's what, we try and sell. And it was funny, the first 4 or 5 years we were in the Pac-12, you talk to recruits or their club coaches or high school coaches, and they're like, wait a minute, you guys aren't in the Pac-12. I mean, it took 4 or 5 years for it to kind of seep through. Like, no, you're really there.
Yeah.
And credit to the department and all these other great teams. And I think just by these teams doing so well, it helps all of us kind of form an identity of, oh, Utah is a real player in the Pac-12. The last 3 or 4 years, the challenge is more just trying to get the recruits on campus. We, like a lot of sports, you may have heard this from other coaches, the recruiting culture and process got really, really young and early, where we were finding ways to talk to 9th and 10th graders. And they were making decisions before we could pay for them to come on a visit out here. And that really hurt us, because my experience has been, if we can get you out here, and sometimes that means we have to pay you for an official visit because you don't have the resources to come on your own, then you'll come here. You'll pick Utah. And one of the exciting things is that the NCAA changed the rules back right before COVID hit, where we can't talk to anybody until after their sophomore year, and we can bring them on a visit, just 2 or 3 months later. And we think that the opportunity to bring kids on visits and see it for yourself is a difference maker. It's transformational for recruiting here.
Yeah.
And that's the goal, is just try to give everybody a feel for what it's like here.
Visiting with Rich Manning on Utes Insider, presented by University of Utah Health. Rich, one last question about the soccer before I move on to my next topic. But if you could name Rich Manning's all-time top 5 list of players you've coached at Utah, which 5 would you pick?
Oh, man, I can't do that.
I know that's a hard question.
These are my children.
Huh?
These are my children. I tell you, we've had a lot of great players, but we've had a lot of great people too.
Yeah.
And I think of, I'll tell you a story about Erin Pruitt, who's now Erin Kay.
Okay.
Who she'd been recruited by the previous coach, and she played on our first 3 teams. And she's now an elementary school teacher up in Olympus Cove. And she was a good player. And we had a lot of good players come in the first 2 years I was here. And by her senior year, she wasn't playing as much. She was playing. And we had a situation where we had a road game. It might have even been the BYU game. And I needed to roster another player instead of her, because of the matchups we were going to face in the game. And I had to tell her, a couple days before the game, I'm not suiting you up for this game. We could only suit up 18 for the game back then. And she just looked at me, and this is her senior year. And she said, I'm disappointed, but I understand. And go to the game. Fast forward maybe a month later, we get to the Mountain West Conference tournament, and we played San Diego State in the final that year of the conference tournament. And she's back on the field, and she makes the win. We actually went to overtime and penalty kicks. She makes the winning penalty kick in the Mountain West Conference championship game. And having that class of a person, be able to have that moment, that's what it's all about. I tell that story over and over when some of our players are struggling to get on the field or not playing their best or feeling maybe sorry for themselves in the context of the team. And I just say, you got to always do what the best you can, control what you can control. And then when your moment happens, seize it and take advantage of it. And that's one of my favorite moments here with the Utes.
That's a great story. Rich, I remember when I worked with your program a lot back in the early 2000s, just some of the characters you had for players. I mean, obviously great soccer players, but just the individuals that would come, and you always found a way to bring them together. And it's not like you're talking about a basketball team where it's, 12 to 15. It's a large roster of kids from different backgrounds and different interests. And it just seemed like your group always came together and blended well together. What's been some of your secrets to allowing that to happen? And I would talk to your athletes and they're like, you know what? He kind of lets us be who we are, and he gives us time to talk at practice. And yes, it's serious, but he understands we need the social element, we need to have fun, and you've always just seemed to kind of have gotten it, Rich, and how to touch, kids in the late teens, early 20s, and make them feel comfortable and allow them to grow together. What's been some of your secrets with that over the years?
Well, I think to talk and listen quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody needs feedback. Everybody needs personal attention. And every once in a while, each season, somebody will come and feel like they haven't been communicated to. And that just, I go, man, you're right. I need to open this door and we got to talk more. That's important. I think, understanding, well, one thing is working with young women that they're just smarter than us guys, Mike. They're just smarter. Like, they get that there's bigger things in life than if this ball goes in the net when I kick it in the moment, right?
Yeah.
They want to do well, but they also understand that kicking this ball in the net right now, winning this game, is not going to be important if I don't have good relationships with the people around me. And that having good relationship is as important or more. And so they constantly remind me of that. Even last week, we have a leadership council, and they just sat down and go, this has been really hard with COVID. Like, we just don't feel connected. And it was another reminder to that. And I think that these young ladies remind me all the time that it's important to always be communicating and always be listening. Now, if you talk to some of the players over the years on our teams, they'll tell you about, Coach Manning and his awkward pauses. So I'm a thinker, and they can tell when my brain's like overloading with stuff. And I'll be in the middle of a conversation and my thoughts will go somewhere, or I'll be searching for the right phrase or words, and they'll just be like, hello, coach, or whatever, or they'll just walk out, and then they'll be talking. I'll hear them talking about, oh yeah, I had a big awkward pause with Coach Manning again today. So I think just having a little sense of humor about that, also helps.
Yeah. Rich, you're so right about the way they take sports in the context of life. I've spent time on buses and at airports with female teams and male teams, and after a loss especially, there's a noticeable difference in the way they handle things. Guys will hang on to things. It means a lot more with women. It seems like they're disappointed. It's not that they don't care, but they let go of it a lot quicker. And they're on to the next thing, or they're on to their relationships and their friends. And they just seem, like I said, they see the bigger picture more than guys do. And you hit it right on the head there. It's been kind of fun to see that contrast with teams over the years. And you certainly seem to have mastered sort of that approach and how to really work with women's teams and do it so effectively. Well, Rich, I want to go back to this summer. When COVID-19 hit, we were all sent home from work and from school, and everyone's on social media just trying to stay connected. And there was so much conversation at that time about social injustice and racial inequality. And I remember seeing a blog post from you that you posted on your Facebook account about just your background in playing soccer growing up in Southern California, about how you play with people from different backgrounds, different races, different social backgrounds, different financial backgrounds, but yet you all just played soccer together. And you kind of made a great point that you can take things from sports and your background in soccer as a player and a coach and really apply them to life. And there's some good lessons that we can all take from sports and apply them to everything else. If you can, maybe Rich, just recall and sort of redraw the picture of that story for us. I thought it was so good at the time, and I want to give you a chance to retell that for us here today.
Well, there's no doubt both, the last year with the pandemic and some of the experiences and incidents that we all shared watching on TV and on video, I think reflection has been an important thing to be doing. And, figuring out, what do I want to be? What do I want to do? How can I better do it? Person do I want to be to the people I coach, or other people that I interact with, and other people in our community. And it really kind of hit kind of hard. And I think the players on our team and the athletes in our department, were reminding us like, hey, we need to be agents of change, and we need to use. I heard from many of my players like, you need to use your platform. And the thing I kept thinking about was that, we all deserve a chance. We all can play the game in soccer. And the guys I grew up with, I had guys from England, Colombia, Germany, Cuba, Mexico, Ireland, all over the place on my team. And nothing mattered except, hey, pass me the ball. Let's play some soccer and have fun. And, that really should be the way it is for all of us all the time. And I kind of reflected last summer on my upbringing with some wonderful people with very different backgrounds, and how I need to do a better job of helping out others so that they can have those same experiences, whether it be people in our school or on our team or just in our community. And I do have, I'm pretty short. I'm not very fast. I'm just a soccer coach, but my players reminded me, like, I do have a platform and I am a leader. I'm in a position of leadership and I need to fight for that, for them and for other people. And so, we've done some things as a team. I've been really focused a lot on helping the food banks out with donations or messages, and some of the local businesses that are owned by people from different backgrounds, just helping them out. And it's a small piece, but, I think I decided that even if I just do a little thing, it's something, and it's an example for the people I work with.
Well, Rich, a great message from you as we wrap it up here. Appreciate the time. I know it's been a challenging year for everyone, but I have to imagine as a collegiate coach in any sport to deal with, people in their late teens, early 20s who are dealing with so many things and family and the pressures of an education and trying to do the things they love and yet having it taken away from them at a critical time in their lives. It has to be difficult, but you've always had such a positive attitude, and I thought your blog post over the summer was great, and I appreciate you recounting that for us. Rich, thanks for dropping by, and best of luck to you this spring.
All right, Mike, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, that's Rich Manning, head coach for Utah Soccer. Back to wrap things up after this on Utes Insider, presented by Pepsi.
For more on Utah athletics, including up-to-date schedules and ticket information, log on to utahutes.com. Now back to more of Utes Insider, presented by Pepsi.
Today's show being brought to you by Pepsi. Grab a Pepsi and some friends and get in the game. Pepsi, proud partner of University of Utah Athletics. Well, I appreciate Rich Manning dropping by so much. I thought a story at the end was just a great way to kind of wrap it up, and I read that this summer, and I thought I need to ask Rich about that and just have him recount that story when I bring him on. And you hear it all the time, the parallels between sports and life and sports, and really as different as they are, they're the same in so many ways. And really it's just about coming together, the common good, and putting things aside like race and economic background, and really forming a team. And there's teams on the field, there's teams for life. And I thought Rich's story really hit home in so many ways. And, it's been fun getting to know Rich. I remember when he first started, I went to practice one day, and, it's around 3:30 and everyone's standing around and talking. And I asked one of the assistant coaches, Gabe Bolton, what's going on? I thought you guys started practice. He goes, oh, this is the start. This is what we do. And he said, Rich understands the fact that the athletes need time to socialize. And if we just let them talk at the start and have their social experience, they are more focused once we get going with the technical aspect. And I just was so impressed by how Rich just got it. He's always gotten it. He's always understood that it's not just about soccer and the games and the results. It's about life and the overall experience. His players have come to expect that, and it's just been fun to see his success, but just watch him sort of just get it over the years. He's done that so well. 188 wins, and now his 19th season. He's had his team in the NCAA's 8 years. Rich Manning, a great guy. We appreciate him dropping by the program. Well, coming up in the next few weeks, Brian Holman of Utah Lacrosse will drop by. Also, Amy Hogue from Utah Softball. So look out for those shows. That will do it for today. Thanks to Mike Gilliland on the technical side. I'm Mike Lageschulte. Until next time, so long, everybody.
This has been Utes Insider, presented by Pepsi. To hear more episodes of this show and other Utah athletics podcasts, search for them on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube.